Right, here we go. So it's the 11th or 12th. Let's have a look. It's the 12th of May. It's easy to forget. Not a light plane going over. Or a helicopter. Hard to tell. Yeah. So we're out in the woods again. Gonna go for a little walk. So what's changed? Yeah, so sorry about yesterday. Just could not get myself motivated. But yeah. A bit more on mission today. So I've already had some exercise, schlepped out to the shops, and now I'm off out into the woods. So it's like about 3 or 4 miles walked. Half of that with a backpack full of groceries. So yeah, reminds me of the old days when I was living in the teepee. And this is kind of similar. I haven't spoken face to face with anybody or had a conversation with somebody I didn't know really for getting on for 2 months. In fact, next week it'll be 2 months, so 7.5 weeks. Ah, shit. That barking sound probably means I'm going to have to switch off the camera at some point, so apologies for that. Yeah. Blossom's out, I'm going to stop recording now. So yeah, had an interesting idea from one of my patrons, Step John, as you might see him on the interwebs. Yeah. Haven't done any podcasting for a bit. So I asked him what he wanted to hear, and strangely enough, I mean, considering I feel the same way too, it's actually easier to run listening to, like a person speaking or an audiobook than it is to run to music, because the music's never going to be at the right speed, and what you want with running is a steady rhythm if you're running long distance like 5k, like I know a lot of you do. So given that that's going to be a thing, and so today at some point I want to do a podcast that's about somewhere between 35 and 40 minutes long, for which I'll have to set up a timer. I wonder if you can change the sound effects on the timer. So yeah, so I asked him what he wanted in the way of a podcast, and he was like, brain food. And I thought, well, that's a pretty interesting concept, given that, the whole 5E thing, or VE thing, ironically, or EV thing. Entertainment, education, expression, exercise, and environment. That could be a useful thing if there was a podcast that ran for around half an hour while you were getting your exercise, or while you were tidying up, or while you were improving your environment, or while you were, in the place of entertainment or in the place of education. You be the judge. So, saving people a bit of time on this whole 5E concept. So yeah, a thing to think about. How very meta. So if it does go up, it's going to have to go on the Kulture channel, and it's got a temporary concept name of Culturecast. So yeah, so this is the challenge. All you people out there get to call the shots on Culturecast. So, what would you want to do? So, my initial thoughts are, let's turn this around. Not in good shape. I need to sort out my exercise regimen. Right, so if you have any amazing photographs of things that you've been up to, or you've taken an amazing photograph, or you've designed something, or you've got a yen for graphic design. So yeah. So if it's going to be a podcast, it's probably going on YouTube. I agree with the music thing. You probably don't want to listen to it if you're getting your exercise, or you're doing the washing up, or you're, just getting into your day, or you're doing something creative. So what I'm going to do is, imagine that you're doing some psychological maintenance or physical maintenance on yourself, or you're fixing something, or you're making something, you're drawing something, or you're out shooting video or taking pictures, and you want something to listen to. Yeah? So I want the images to be supplied by us. Okay? So if there's any image on the podcast, at the moment we'll time it so that, us older guys, if we're doing a 5k run or something crazy like that, where, we're doing that in between 35 and 40 minutes. When my exercise regime kicks in, I'm going to have it last as long as my 5k run. Oh, hold on. Okay, so once I start running 5Ks, that's how long the podcast will be, so I've got enough time to review it, plus or minus a few minutes. So I'm going to start at 40 minutes, because everybody I know that runs it between 30 and 40 minutes. So yeah. So this is for you, Kevin, and you, Step John, and ideally me, have got something to listen to that we're interested in. So we can listen to it. If you want to contribute, I'd suggest, if you're going to describe something or talk about something and record that down, email it across or upload it to YouTube or upload it to the archive.org and give me a link, and it's something that we're going to put in. I think you probably want less than 15 minutes. Yeah? So we're going to try and split the the segments down so that we've got an environmental, an expression, an exercise, an environmental exercise expression, an education or an entertainment segment. Okay, and anything that we don't have up to that 40 minutes, the penalty for people not sending stuff in is that it'll all be me. Which brings me to my second consideration. Okay, so I was watching a documentary on David Bowie this morning. It's part of my, don't even know whether that's education or entertainment, because I took a thing away from it, which you can do from all good art, in that, it's really going, everything's going nuts. It's been such nice weather. It's like nature wants to take the path back. Yeah? Anyway, so I was watching a documentary on David Bowie, and he comes from a fairly ordinary sort of a background. He's from Brixton in London, sort of super urban chunk of London where nobody famous came out of Brixton except David Bowie, really. I'm sure that's not true, but that's how they touted David Bowie when he first became famous and first got on television. Like all people that become famous, there are snippets of him before he was a household name. And that was very interesting. But what he did, and I'm sure it's It's a thing that a lot of people do. He took this idea that you would have to be a different person in order to be a successful musician or performer, because he was also very into mime and acting and stuff like that. So he would wear another skin, if you like, and a whole Native American skinwalker thing, dress himself up psychologically as another human. And this other human is capable of doing all those things. Which begs the question, what would that personality be like? Should I try on different personalities when I do this podcast? Yeah, so I don't mean a different accent or a funny voice but should I try and be a different person? And who would that person be? What is the shamanic skin I would wear in order to grab your attention? Does it need to be a more extreme version of who I am, or something that I'm really not? You know, I don't want to wear, don't want to turn into the character of Pink in The Wall. I don't want to turn into a fascist. I don't want to turn into a raving communist spouting ideology and screaming about how the ends justify the means. So what would that person be? Who would you listen to? Why? And we'll work on it. We will create a gestalt personality, if you like. Maybe you just want me. Somebody going, well, I don't know, getting old now. So I'm trying to, I want to have a podcast that's actually relevant and useful. And I don't know how often I can actually do that. So all input is acceptable. Given that we can only fight destructive forces with creativity, man. I mean, you can fight fire with fire, but it's much more complicated and much more dangerous than fighting fire with a shitload of water, say. It's easier to fight electrical flow with insulation. So yeah, he doesn't know what you've got. I don't know what it is you want. So demands for the new podcast are, first come, first served. If you want to do a segment, I'd have to say you want to probably keep it below 15 minutes, because I will want time to cover any of the other aspects of this sort of like holistic response, the 5 E's, that makes you feel like you're living, basically you then are living a fulfilling life. You're expressing yourself, you're getting exercise, you're educating yourself, you're learning stuff, you're getting some entertainment in, and each day you're slightly improving your environment. So yeah, that's what I'm doing at the moment, and it's chilling me right out. So yeah. So what do you think? Answers in the comments below. But yeah, is there a personality that you want to hear? You want me to just go off the chain and just be a more extreme version of myself? Or is there something else you can think of? What segments do you want to hear about? What have you got to tell everybody else? And as I say, initially we'll keep it sub 40 minutes. And it will become shorter, and that will be a gimmick. The run time will be, once I get back up to my exercise limit, I'm going to stick it at 40 minutes. So if you're doing a 5k run, it's enough time for you to listen to the whole podcast and get most of the way home. I'm going to try and do one podcast every day. I reckon I can attempt to entertain you for 40 minutes. I'm pretty sure that's a doable thing. So yeah, I reckon I can do that. So, yeah, so initially it's going to be non-visual. It's just going to be audio. And if you want to send in a piece of, like a piece of graphic art or a photograph of something that you've done or anything like that. So yeah, that's my new idea for a creative thing. So yeah, and I'm also, you know, although I didn't do anything yesterday, I also plan to do day 2 of the D4 Darius filmmaking school, in which I've got to take 50 photos using composition. And yeah, at the end of this, I'm hoping to put a few images on the end of this video. Haven't had any video from Harlequin as yet, but you'll be the first to know when I do. And I think you can already get his stuff, but I'm just reposting it. Very grateful for the work that he puts in, and I'm very grateful to my sponsors, my patrons. So thanks very much for that. And but to be honest, you know, everybody sort of helps. You know, with the, you know, everybody that keeps me sane in the Rangers chat rooms or in the isolation ward Discord or anywhere, you know, anybody that has a conversation with me is just helping me stay that bit much more sane as the lockdown continues, given that the UK has the highest corona death toll in Europe and not the highest population, you know. So yeah, and comparatively we've got an even higher death toll than the United States, which is amazing. You know, we're quite possibly living in, if all the figures are to be believed, statistically it's the worst run response in the world. So yeah, so I don't know how long I'm going to be locked down, and I'm currently being sponsored by a large corporation. So yeah, should use the time wisely. So yeah, so life is as interesting as it's going to be. Everything's complicated, people are stressed, and it's really not helping staring into the maw of approved content. So we need to make some other stuff. So if you want to record a segment for Culturecast, then you should go for it. If you want me to include an image or a video. Ah, shit, look at all that. We really need to leave. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a ton of rubbish at the bottom of that hill. It's not funny. There's nothing pleasant I can say about it. Look at that. That's clearly someone just being a massive dick. Yet where there's money, if you've got money, like on a golf course, look at how pristine it is. If you don't go to the golf course, you see all this crap. But yeah. Mad, isn't it? So, let me know your thoughts. This is one of those ones where I really desperately want comments, or tell me in the Discord or anything like that, you know. Something needs to change, and I'm prepared to go all hippie about it and say, oh, well, what we need is creativity to combat the destruction in the world. Okay, so I mean, imagine if all the rock stars and all the musicians and all the famous painters and all the people that ended up being wealthy as a result of imparting their viewpoint on the world had put in, I don't know, 10%, 5%, let's call it 5%. 10% is too much like the Roman Catholic tithe. I don't really do a lot with that. So yeah, so imagine there was this 5% fund and all the artists in all the world put money into it, and then we said we were not going to do anything until we do something really amazing. You know, you could technically buy up, you know, with that kind of money, all the millions and millions that rock musicians get, and all the gigantic amounts of money that music producers get and record companies get and filmmakers get, and all the huge amount of money that's generated from human creativity. 5% of that was just siphoned off. Well, fuck it, 1%. Imagine there was somebody with the authority to just put a 1% tax on all that craziness, and then it all got funneled into a project to make the planet awesome. Yeah? And then, you know, about a decade later, the Awesome Fund is used to change the face of the earth. Yeah? Imagine that there's a country in the world somewhere, you know, somewhere about the size of France, where all the shaman type people, all the creative people, all the people that solve problems just went, I'm off. They're, you know, 1% of, you know, the monetization on the scale that we have now, you know, just say from 1950 to now, over 70 years, would have been enough to build an entirely new country, you know, from the ground up. I wonder what that would look like. You know, government, essentially you'd have a sort of organising body, like an administration run free music studio, or free film sets, free internet, things that you could just like literally pipe across to people. What a world that would be. Even if there was just one country that did it all right, or at least were, you know, when it was pointed out that they weren't doing right, they corrected it. And they got the advice of very smart people and had to think about it before they did stuff. You know, in what way are people at their best, and how would we create a concentration of that? Because that shit would explode. So yeah. So, thanks for watching, do take care. Where am I going, who's going with me? And never get the order of those questions messed up. Take care, I'll see you soon.